Before we begin, since this is a BBC-owned property, I feel the need to point out that the news arm of the BBC has a continuing issue with transphobic leanings in its news coverage. You can find in a pinned comment below various videos from both myself and other YouTubers covering this issue. And while I understand that the Doctor Who creative team is not responsible for this, I will continue to point this out for as long as it remains a consistent issue. Thank you. Series 11 was a bit of a stumble. Can this one at least start out better? Well, folks, my Take Two Doctor Who reviews continue, and I am going right in to Series 12. And I am already on record as thinking Series 12 is a significant improvement over Series 11. And I remember it being that way pretty much right from the off. And having now rewatched Spyfall Part 1, yeah, I still feel that. We'll see if that feeling holds as I work through the series. But yeah, this is definitely starting on stronger, more self-assured footing than Series 11 did. Now, part of that is still from decisions that make me go, a little bit, because a lot of it feels very reactive. There's a ton of stuff that wasn't done in Series 11 that was immediately brought back. Not that I think that Doctor Who shouldn't have brought things like cold opens, two-parters, classic villains, etc. back into the franchise in something other than the New Year's special. But at the same time, throwing them all back in immediately after Series 11, which ditched pretty much all of those. Again, the special accepted, at least when it came to the classic villains. But throwing it back in all at once, it just feels like they're scrambling to try and make good on mistakes. Which, on the one hand, does show that they are trying to learn and improve. On the other hand, it feels a little bit desperate. That said, it is still starting out way, way better. So Spyfall starts with the deaths of various spies. The whole front end of this is fairly committed to the espionage bit. And it kind of keeps the vibe going for a while, I would say up until the last 10 minutes or so. But I was kind of surprised. I don't think I'd remembered how much the James Bond and spy movie thread kind of ran through this in a lot of ways. Like right from the beginning, it's a very spy movie opening in general, with a little bit of sci-fi-ness going on. But then we have, the briefing with the equivalent of M in C with Stephen Fry. And we've got, let's investigate this villain. Let's go consult an expert. Let's crash a party. We have the chase. It's very, very spy movie. I think my memory of this had kind of faded largely into a focus on Sacha Dhawan, and I'd kind of forgotten how much this is just embracing the vibe it's going for, which is good. I don't think Doctor Who should be spy movie-esque on a regular basis, but if it's going to be that, this is a pretty decent version of it. I also feel like most of the actors have settled into their roles a bit. The companions especially. Again, I don't think the companion performances were bad in Series 11. And actually, I saw more in there that became things that were picked up later. I've seen a lot of complaints of sort of inconsistencies in the characterization of the companions. Like the thing about Ryan's dyspraxia and how inconsistently that is applied is absolutely valid. But honestly, there were a lot of more things in Series 11 that I picked up and I'm like, oh, that is a thing with them that they stick with. But at the same time, just as a dynamic, they feel more settled and it's more fun that way. Also, speaking of things that get established in matter later, I did take a quick extra look. Ryan's friend, who's going to come up again later in the series in Can You Hear Me, does appear in this. When I saw Ryan talking with his friends and playing basketball, I was like, wait, is that him? And then I checked, I'm like, yeah, it is. Good job. I don't especially care for the time that is spent, showing how the companions are making excuses to go and travel with the Doctor. Where, like, I know the TARDIS is unreliable, but shouldn't we be able to count at least a little bit on the TARDIS bringing them back around the same time that they left? I mean, maybe not in this particular instance since it is an Earthbound story, but in general, like, should they be doing this kind of prep? Should this be a regular thing where they just kind of vanish off the face of the earth for a while and their friends are like, what are you even up to? I mean, like, I suppose, again, given how inconsistent the TARDIS has been about being able to return to a precise points in time with any reliability that maybe this just is a better way for them to do it and to prepare for it. But at the same time, I'm like, I don't know. I don't think I needed this. Now, let's talk about Stephen Fry real quick. He's a real good stand-in for your M-style character if you watch James Bond movies. I don't love the whole the doctor is a man thing. Just it's less that I don't like the beat. I think the beat is fine. I think it's just played in the most generic on the nose way that it could possibly be. I think that's a writing issue, not necessarily a Stephen Fry issue. So I don't love that moment, but overall he brings a good sense of authority and also a good sense of desperation is too strong a word, a good sense of need. Like when he's saying to the doctor, we need your help. Like, I believe him. So that works. I kind of like the way the creatures are done. They're weird and they're kind of tricky to wrap your head around because they're either kind of have the impression of the world kind of wrapped around them, or they are almost blindingly bright. And those are nice, off-putting designs and also surprisingly simple, but yeah, quite effective. So I dig them. The whole thing with Yaz and Ryan going to interview the CEO, whose name has now already left my head, the CEO of Vor, Chris, Mr. Chibnall, have somebody on your team Google the terms you intend to use. Granted, it's not spelled the same way, but it is pronounced the same way. If you, as an audience, if you don't know what Vor is, don't Google it. But, like, it's well known enough that these characters really, really, really should not have been saying it as often as they do. It's off-putting for anyone with any internet literacy who knows what that term means. And if it's intentional, it's a bad call because it's distracting. So, that's a side note, though. Anyways, the whole investigative journalist thing, the cover for Yaz and Ryan to go in and talk to this guy, I think is handled pretty well because, first of all, that format, well, it fits the spy movie stuff, the coming up with a fake reason to get in there and just talk and try and suss out your villain. But also, in addition to that, it's a decent vehicle for some of the exposition that we're going to get about him, both in terms of his history and as a character, because we get to see what a callous, unfeeling ass he is. And through the lens of these questions that Yaz is asking him, that's a pretty good vehicle for some exposition. Is it a seamless one? Well, no, I can tell it's a vehicle for exposition, but it's one that makes sense. It makes sense that these questions are sort of set up, answer, here's the information, because that's what an interview is. So if you're going to put this information in there in some way that is straightforward, this works, and it's smooth, and it doesn't bug me. I also kind of love that even undercover, Yaz can't stop herself from kind of taking a shot at this guy.
Disinformation, online abuse, cyberbullying, all of which you've been accused of ignoring, haven't you?
Props to her. It's one of the other traits of Yaz that I wish more had been done with, but it is a consistency. She gets uppity when she feels like something is wrong that is being ignored. So it's a good moment. Again, I kind of wish as a character trait it had built up into more, but it still works here. But ultimately, I think the thing to talk the most about is the introduction of Sacha Dhawan as the Master. So there's a few things here. I actually, when I was rewatching, I remember thinking, how long has he been pretending to be O? Like, really? Except that later when it gets revealed, he's sort of just flat out like, when the doctor goes, but I met O, and he's like, I know. So it's like this, it's just in the performance. It's like this admission that he went so far out of his way just to mess with the doctor better. Like, there was no reason for him to set himself up at MI6 the way he did, for as long as he did, except to mess with the doctor. But you can tell he takes such glee in that. I immediately buy, oh, yeah, he would go to all this trouble just to mess with you. Okay. It's also really interesting to rewatch knowing what the reveal is going to be, because when he is being O, first of all, the character is quite endearing and nicely done. So it's a decently fleshed out character that I found myself liking even before the reveal. And going back and rewatching it, knowing what's coming, there's lots of little moments, little smirks, smiles, little laughs that when you watch it the first time, play as a kind of social awkwardness. Like, he just doesn't really know how to interact around people. He kind of laughs at inappropriate times. Sometimes he gets these little fleeting smiles and then he pulls it back together, I think, because he's trying to not be off-putting. But then rewatching it, knowing who he is and going, oh, this is where he's almost breaking character because he's so excited about what he's going to put the Doctor through. That's actually a lot of fun. Because the thing is, I have rewatched very little of the Jodie Whittaker, Chris Chibnall area. So even the stuff that I liked, like Spyfall, I hadn't gone back and rewatched since it initially aired. And so I'm kind of spotting those things that had I rewatched it previously, I would have already known. But now it's like, oh, and that's a lot of fun too. And he's got, here's the thing about Sacha Dhawan's master. He feels like a refinement and a distillation of what John Sim did in a way that actually works for me. Because I've complained about John Sim, at least when he first shows up in Series 3, as being kind of Saturday morning cartoonish. He is just so over the top. He's so manic. And honestly, manic's a good word for Dhawan as well, but it doesn't feel like he's bouncing off the walls. It feels like he just has all this energy that he is just trying to contain and focus. And that is a general impression that is similar to Sim, but it results in a very different overall feel. This feels more like someone who is struggling to keep himself directed and focused as much as he can on this, when part of him kind of wants to wander off and do something else possibly, or like there's just so much energy to that focusing on one thing is almost kind of difficult for him. Whereas John Sim was just kind of bouncing off the wall because he was bouncing off the wall. So I prefer this. And he's got some great, just intimidating looks and moments and laughs. And I really enjoy his master. Again, going down the line, kind of wish more had come of it. But it's a good intro. It's a good moment. It's a good performance. Yeah, I like him in this a lot. Some other things I really like the sheer alienness of the place where initially Yaz gets sent and then later the Doctor ends up at the end of the episode. I like when the Doctor confronts the CEO at CEO's own party. She gets right in his face and tells him flat out, yeah, I know this is what you're doing. Because, why waste the time pretending otherwise? I know what's up. You might as well know I know what's up. So let's just cut the crap. I dig it. I like it. And overall, I do like this. It's a really strong first part. And there's lots of little intrigue from the ideas of what are these creatures doing? What are they trying to accomplish? Why is this guy's DNA only 93% human? That's like a real tantalizing number. So it's not like, oh, he's an alien. It's like, well, no, he's mostly human. But wait, what? That's a nice thread. It just does a really good job at pulling together its characters, its elements, the vibe it's going for, and it all hangs together really well in this first part. I don't know how well I remember it paying off in the second part. I don't remember disliking part 2, but my gut tells me part 1's the stronger of these. Well, I'll find out next week, I suppose. But for right now, look, Spyfall is a good start to this. And I do think it is, broadly speaking, a good episode. So, what are your thoughts on this? Whatever they are, drop something down in the comments. Let's talk about it. Patreon's what pays the bills. It is what allows me to do this as my living. But even if you aren't able to do that, like, share, and subscribe help me out as well. And there's links in the description, various things you can do to assist me, merch, other places you can follow me, Twitch. I've got books for sale. Don't worry too much about it, though. At the end of the day, what I really want you to remember is you are beautiful. You are valid. And you are loved. You are the council. I'm just running the meetings. And until next time, this council is adjourned. End credits, that means I need to shout out my top Patreon supporters. Robin Moore, Zupin Lutfula, Tarak, the thing that goes doink in the anime, Oliver B., Linda Walters, Emu Delkey, Leotha Boyd, Toy Loli, Becky Sparks, Renabi Lax the Poodle, Zach, Tracy Scrabbit, Angry Casperl, Adam RDL Taylor, Shay Legurle, Brendan LaRose, and TT. Thank you so much for your support. You can get your name in the credits too by checking out the rewards on the Patreon. You only tried to eat my earring once this time. That's much better.